Om Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet. Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Neshtiki. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sakarajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pricharine Nirviseshasha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we continue our reading of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2. We are on Canto 2, Chapter 6, and text 35. Text 35. And then we read a half of this. So we are going to continue with that. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So Lord Brahma is telling Naradji that he is, although he's known as Brahma, and then although his knowledge is perfect, he's receiving it from Krishna himself, and he has so much mystic powers, and he is self-realized, and then, but he still cannot understand the Lord fully. He cannot understand the Lord. So Lord Brahma is the first living being who directly learned the Vedic wisdom from the Lord. Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye. Therefore, who can be a more learned Vedantist than Lord Brahma? He admits that in spite of his perfect knowledge in the Vedas, he was unable to know the glories of the Lord. Since no one can be more than Lord Brahma, how can a so-called Vedantist be perfectly cognizant of the absolute truth? The so-called Vedantist, therefore, cannot enter into the existence of the Lord without being trained in the matter of Bhakti Vedanta or Vedanta plus Bhakti. Vedanta means self-realization, and Bhakti means realization of the personality of Godhead to some extent. No one can know the personality of Godhead in full, but at least to a certain extent, one can know the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead by self-surrender and a devotional attitude, and by nothing else. So Prabhupada is saying here that it's not enough just to be self-realized that I'm not the body, I'm the soul. But with that knowledge, with the knowledge of the Vedanta, by being called a Vedantist, we also need bhakti, devotion to the Supreme Lord. And then that devotion is, we can know the Supreme Lord by this devotion, and a attitude of surrender to the Supreme Lord. In the Brahma Samhita also it is said, Vedeshu Durlabham, or simply by study of Vedanta, one can hardly find out the existence of the personality of Godhead. But the Lord is Adurlabham Atma Bhakta, very easily available to his devotee. Srila Vyasadeva therefore was not satisfied simply with compiling the Vedanta Sutras, but over and above this, by the advice of his spiritual master Narad, he compiled the Srimad Bhagavatam in order to understand the real import of Vedanta. Srimad Bhagavatam, therefore, is the absolute medium by which to understand the absolute truth. So although Vedvyas, he had compiled all the Vedas, extensively, he divided the 4 Vedas, then he compiled the Puranas, the Itihasas, Upanishads, all that knowledge. But he was still feeling not very happy. And he was trying to understand what happened. And so his spiritual master, Narad Muni, told him, because you have not described devotional service to Lord Krishna, you have not directly glorified Lord Krishna. And so that's why Vyasadeva, he compiled Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the essence of all the Vedas. It's the mature fruit of all the Vedas. So by studying the Srimad Bhagavatam, we can get the result of studying all the Vedas, and even more, we get devotion to Krishna. Is that okay?
Yes.
So then we can go to text 36. Nato asmi aham takcha charanam sami yusham bhavachidam swasti ayanam sumangalam yohi atma maya vibhavam sma paryagat yatha nabha svantam athabare kutaha. Therefore, it is best for me to surrender unto his feet, which alone can deliver one from the miseries of repeated birth and death. Such surrender is all auspicious and allows one to perceive all happiness. Even the sky cannot estimate the limits of its own expansion. So what can others do when the Lord himself is unable to estimate his own limits? So Lord Brahma, the greatest of all learned living beings, the greatest sacrificer, the greatest observer of the austere life, and the greatest self-realized mystic, advises us as the supreme spiritual master of all living beings that one should simply surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord in order to achieve all success, even up to the limit of being liberated from the miseries of material life and being endowed with all auspicious spiritual existence. So if we want to, Lord Brahma, the best of the living entities, he is suggesting us that if we want to have the goal of human life, if we want to make a permanent solution to this miseries of life, of birth, death, old age, and disease, then what do we have to do? It's only by surrendering to Krishna. We just simply have to say, my dear Lord, I surrender at your lotus feet. That's all, And our surrender begins by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. So Lord Brahma is known as the Pitamaha, or the father's father. A young man consults his experienced father about discharging his duties. So the father is naturally a good advisor. But Lord Brahma is the father of all fathers. He's the father of Manu, who is the father of mankind all over the universal planets. Therefore, the men of this insignificant planet should kindly accept the instruction of Brahmaji and would do well to surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord, rather than try to estimate the length and breadth of the Lord's potencies. So, as a kind father is always ready to guide the son properly, Lord Brahma, he is even the father of Manu. Manu is he's the father of mankind, Manushya. We are all humans, right? Yeah, Manushya. So, our father is Manu. But Lord Brahma is even Manu's father. So he has our good intention in heart. He's not going to misguide us or engage us in something which is going to waste our time and energy. And so what is he saying? Just surrender unto Krishna. Don't try to speculate who's God, who's not God by our tiny, tiny brains. Don't try to understand the unlimited. Krishna is unlimited. How can we try to understand the unlimited by our tiny brains? You know, it's like how the Dr. Frog, that the frog in the well, there are two friends. One frog comes to the frog in the well and tells him, hey, you know, have you seen the ocean? The frog in the well says, I don't need to see the ocean. It must be as big as this well. And so the other frog says, no, it's much bigger. So how much bigger is it? He puffs, the frog in the well puffs himself. Maybe it's as big as this, you know. The other frog says, no, it's even bigger. So he puffs himself more. No, it's even bigger, because he's trying to estimate how much is the ocean. He's so tiny. And then he tries to blow himself more, that he just bursts himself out. So by our mental, I'm sorry, by our mental speculation, we cannot understand the unlimited. If we can find him, we can try to understand the unlimited Supreme Lord only by devotional service. Once we start hearing and chanting about him, then we can understand to the degree that he lets us understand. So,
Lord Brahma's son is Manu.
Yes.
Oh, I thought Narad Muni, no?
Yes, Narad Muni is also Lord Brahma's son. Lord Brahma is he's the original creator, so he has many, many sons. Even
Yes,
the
yes.
4 Kumaras are Narad
Correct.
Brahma's son. Even
Son.
Lord Shiva comes from Lord Brahma. You know, Lord Shiva, Rudra is also coming from Lord Brahma. So he's the original father of all in this universe. And then who's Lord Brahma's father? He says, Govindam Adipurusham Tam Aham Bhajami.
Yeah.
Govinda, you are my seed-giving father.
Okay.
Yeah. So then reading on, his potencies are immeasurable, as confirmed in the Vedas. Parasya Shaktir Vividheva Shruyate Swabhaviki Jnana Balakriya Cha. Swateshvatara Upanishad 6.8. He is the greatest of all, and all others, even the greatest of all living beings, namely Brahmaji, admits that the best thing for us is to surrender unto him. Therefore, only those persons with a poor fund of knowledge claim that they themselves are lords of all that they survey. And what can they survey? They cannot even survey even the length and breadth of a small sky in one small universe. So we say we don't want to surrender to Krishna. Why should I surrender to Krishna? I can do everything by myself. I'm independent. Why do I need to surrender to Krishna? But our knowledge is so tiny. What can we understand? We don't even understand how this material nature is working. We cannot even fully understand this planet of ours. What to speak of the planet? We cannot even understand our own body, how we are eating food, how it's being digested, turning into blood, and how all the cells are being reproduced. You know, it's all just so automatic. And yet we think that we are the controllers. We think that why should we surrender to Krishna? Suppose I surrender to Krishna and he exploits me like a dictator. How we have experienced that these dictators, you know, we have had many dictators like Saddam Hussein or Napoleon, or, you know, that they are gonna, they were exploiting people. But Krishna is not like that. Krishna is the most kindest, loving father, loving person. Only we have to do is we just say, Krishna, I want to get to know you. I want to start chanting your name. And then we can realize how loving he is, how compassionate he is, how merciful he is. So the so-called material scientist says that he would need to live 40,000 years to reach the highest planet of the universe by being carried by a Sputnik. This is also utopian because no one can be expected to live 40,000 years. Besides, when the space pilot returned from his travel, none of his friends would be present to receive him back as the greatest astronaut, as has become fashionable for the modern, bewildered scientific men. One scientific man who had no belief in God was very much enthusiastic in making plans for his material existence and therefore opened a hospital to save the living. But after opening the hospital, he himself died within 6 months. So one should not spoil his human life, which is obtained after many, many changes of bodies in 8,400,000 species of life, simply for the concocted material happiness of life through increasing artificial needs in the name of advancement of economic development and scientific knowledge. So right now we are thinking that we are advancing. Our human civilization is so much more advanced than it was 100, 200 years ago. We have so many more things. We have so many more gadgets. Our lives are more better. But are they actually much better? You know, sure, we have more comforts physically, but then are our minds more at peace? Are we living longer, healthier lives? Or in fact, do we have more diseases than it was before? So what are we doing to ourselves in this name of economic development? And whereas the time is clicking on, the time is ticking, you know, 1 second also does not wait. And we have gotten this human form of life after a very, very long time, 8,400,000 species of life. That's a long time. And it's only in this human life can we make a permanent solution of birth, death, old age, and disease. And if we don't take advantage of this human life, then we don't know what our next life could be. We could be again becoming animals, you know, and again going in the evolution process. Then again, when will we become a human being? And then we are actually suffering, but mentally we are thinking, oh yes, right now I'm suffering, but I will enjoy. And many of us don't even know that we are suffering, you know. Rather, one should simply surrender unto the feet of the Lord to make a solution to all miseries of life. That is the instruction of Lord Krishna directly in the Bhagavad Gita. And that is the instruction of Srimad Bhagavatam by Brahmaji, the Supreme Father of all living beings. So Krishna says to Arjuna that abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. So we are afraid if I surrender to Krishna, then I have some attachment to some demigod. I have some attachment to doing certain ritualistic activities. If I don't do that, then I will get sins. Krishna is saying, don't worry. You're not going to get any sinful reactions because I'm going to take care of you personally. And there is no one who's greater than Krishna. There is no demigod who's greater than Krishna. There is no pious activity or any ritual that is greater than Krishna. Krishna is giving guarantee that do not fear. You just surrender unto me and I will take care of you. And the same thing Brahmaji is telling us. Anyone denying this surrendering process as recommended both in the Bhagavad Gita and in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and for that matter, in all authorized scriptures, will be forced to surrender unto the laws of material nature. The living entity, by his constitutional position, is not independent. He must surrender either unto the Lord or unto the material nature. So you see, because our problem is we think we are independent. We think that, but we just have to analyze and try to understand that are we truly independent or are we totally dependent, you know? And if we don't surrender to Krishna, then we have to we are under these modes of nature. The modes of nature are making us dance, and then we are dancing as puppets. So we have to be either in the internal energy of Krishna or in his Maya energy. We cannot be nowhere, you know, because we are so tiny, and that is our position as the position of the ocean shore. Sometimes it's in the water, sometimes it's not in the water. So, but the shore is like that, you know, that's the position of the shore, and that's our position. We just have to understand that. So Krishna says that material nature is also not independent of the Lord, since the Lord himself has claimed material nature as Mama Maya, or my energy, in Bhagavad Gita 7.14, and as Me Bhinna Prakritir Ashtada, or my separated energy in 8 divisions, 7.4. So we might say, okay, I don't want to surrender unto Krishna. I want to surrender unto Maya. That's okay. I want to live here in the material world. I don't want to. Why should I surrender unto Krishna? But who does this Maya energy belong to? Who does this material nature belongs to? It belongs to Krishna. She does not act independently. She is also acting under the laws of Krishna. She is a pure devotee of Krishna. She is a servant of Krishna. So that's why Krishna says my energy, or my separated energy. She is totally controlled by Krishna. Therefore, material nature is also controlled by the Lord, as he has claimed in the Bhagavad Gita 9.10. Mayadhyakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam. Under my direction only is material nature working, and thus are all things moving. And the living entities, being superior energy to matter, have choice and discrimination, either to surrender unto the Lord or to surrender unto the material nature. By surrendering unto the Lord, one is happy and liberated. But by surrendering unto material nature, the living entity suffers. So the end of all suffering means surrendering unto the Lord, because the surrendering process itself is Bhava Chiddham, liberation from all material miseries. Swasti Ayanam, perception of all happiness, and Sumangalam, the source of everything auspicious. So then, now, it's our choice. Who do I want to surrender to Krishna, or do I want to surrender to Maya? Now, when I surrender to Maya, means I don't make any effort to get out of this material world. I just do the things what I want to do, how I want to do, with disregard to anything else, disregard to the Vedic scriptures, injunctions. Then what happens is, because the laws of karma act, so each of my action, I have a reaction to it. And then for that reaction, I have to keep coming into this material world. If I'm bad, if I'm acting in a bad way, then I'm going to come and get that reaction. But we might say, I'm a good person. I'm doing so much charity. I'm doing so much. I don't do any violence to anybody. I'm really very, very good. But then laws of karma are very stringent. They're very stringent. We have to really analyze, what actually am I doing? What are my thoughts? What are my intentions behind those thoughts? You know? And then, but once we surrender to Krishna, so our surrendering process, the surrendering process is devotional service. And then that itself is so happy that we don't feel the misery. As we were saying, that just by chanting Hare Krishna, by dancing in front of the Lord, that is surrendering to the Lord. That's a surrendering process. But we feel so happy. So immediately we have the evidence that by surrendering to Krishna, we are actually feeling happy. By hearing about him, we feel more and more happy. Our anxieties get reduced. We don't think of the other 1,000 things which are troubling us on our head, you know, the minute we are thinking about Krishna. So we can see that devotional service is blissfully performed, and devotional service is this surrendering process. And by just engaging in, we are getting a tiny glimpse of how much happy we will be when we are actually situated with Krishna in the spiritual world. And then if we continue saying, no, I will do whatever I want to do, then we have to be here in this material world, and we have to suffer the consequences. suffer the consequences of being here, sometimes as an animal, sometimes as a tree, sometimes as a plant, you know. Therefore, liberty, happiness, and all good fortune can be attained only by surrendering unto the Lord, because he is full liberty, full happiness, and full auspiciousness. Such liberation and happiness are also unlimited, and they have been compared to the sky. Although such liberation and happiness are infinitely greater than the sky. In our present position, we can simply understand the magnitude of greatness when it is compared to the sky. We fail to measure the sky, but the happiness and liberty obtained in association with the Lord are far greater than the sky. The spiritual happiness is so great that it cannot be measured even by the Lord himself, not to speak of others. So, because Krishna is Sachidananda, he's eternal, full of happiness, full of bliss, is fully auspicious, just by coming in touch with him, just by chanting Hare Krishna, hearing about him, reading about him, seeing his deity, doing some service for him, making a garland for him. What happens? We get happy because we are in touch with the source of happiness. He's the source of happiness, you know, and his qualities, his happiness is so great that even he can't measure it. So how can we measure? You know, it's like an unlimited ocean. Here, to get a tiny bit of happiness, how much we have to struggle, how much we have to endeavor. We make so many plans. Oh, if I do this, I'm going to get so happy. And then to get that plan, we make so much endeavor we do, you know. And then we get happy, but it's so short-lived. Again, the circumstance changes. So it just takes a little bit of introspection, a little bit of analytical thinking on our part. What is actually happening? Am I actually being happy by all these endeavors? You know, or is it that it's just covered up suffering? You know, as we say that the camel chews on the thorns with his own blood and thinks that he's so happy and he's enjoying so much. So it is said in the scriptures, Brahma Saukyam Tva Anantam. Spiritual happiness is unlimited. Here it is said that even the Lord cannot measure such happiness. This does not mean that the Lord cannot measure it and is therefore imperfect in that sense. The actual position is the Lord can measure it, but the happiness in the Lord is also identical with the Lord on account of absolute knowledge. So the happiness derived from the Lord may be measured by the Lord, but the happiness increases again, and the Lord measures it again, and then again the happiness increases more and more, and the Lord measures it more and more. And as such, there is eternally a competition between increment and measurement, so much so that the competition is never stopped, but goes on unlimitedly ad infinitum. Spiritual happiness is Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam, or the ocean of happiness, which increases. The material ocean is stagnant, but the spiritual ocean is dynamic. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela 4th chapter, Kaviraj Goswami has very nicely described this dynamic increment of the ocean of spiritual happiness in the transcendental person of Srimati Radharani, the pleasure potency of Lord Krishna. So Krishna's happiness increases so much, it's said that he can't measure it. Of course he can, he's God, he can do anything. So his happiness increases and he measures it. But then it increases again. And then he measures it again. And it increases again. And he measures it again. Because he's unlimited. Krishna is unlimited. So his happiness is unlimited. So just imagine when we dive into this ocean of nectar, of devotion, that ocean, we can never reach its shore. We can just dive deeper and deeper and deeper and taste more and more nectar, more and more sweetness. And here Prabhupada is mentioning that Kaviraj Goswami in Chaitanya Charitamrita, he says that when Krishna and Radharani, when they are looking at each other, the happiness they feel in each other's association, they feel so happy that Krishna looks at Radharani and then he's happy, and then she looks at him and then she's happy, and then the happiness increases. And then they're happy just being together. And then again, their happiness increases. So same way, when we engage in devotional service with Krishna, when we come in contact with Krishna, it's not that our happiness is going to be just tiny, but it's going to keep on increasing, expanding, expanding more and more, more and more, you know. So we just have to, and how do we learn to swim? Just dive into the ocean. So if we want to taste the nectar of devotion, we just dive into it. Just dive into the ocean of devotion. Is that okay?
Very nice.
Okay.
But the thing is, we are controlled by Maya in this false ego. Very hard.
Yes.
Just try.
We are. But you know, the more we hear and chant, the more we associate with devotees, then that, because hearing and chanting, that's devotional service, right? So already we are being in touch with Krishna. And then we can realize, oh, when I'm chanting more and more, I'm feeling more and more attached to chanting. The happiness I used to feel before while chanting, and I'm chanting now, it's much more. When I'm hearing and reading Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, before I didn't like it so much, but now I'm liking it more and more. It's going to increase. So when we associate with devotees, then it gives us that strength. It gives us that strength to engage more in devotional service. And as Krishna Baladev Prabhu was saying that day, yes, Maya is very strong, but just somehow or the other, that time call out, Krishna, Krishna, save me, you know? And then Krishna is there. He helps us.
We must have full trust in Krishna.
Yeah, have full.
Yeah.
And then the faith, it will increase, because right now our faith is very tiny. It's very tiny. So, but the more we hear and chant about him, because we can experience it then. You know, it's not artificial. Nobody, when we eat food, somebody doesn't have to say, oh, now you ate food, now your stomach is full and you're feeling satisfied and you're feeling stronger. Nobody has to tell us. We feel it by ourselves. So same way, devotional service is like this. We engage in devotional service, hearing, chanting, worshipping the deity. And then the more we do it, we feel, we can experience the bliss. We can experience Krishna. Nobody else has to tell us, you know?
Yeah, the inner happiness is there. Right?
Yeah. And that is what, you know, keeps us going. So we all have to associate with each other, associate with the devotees, and that is where the you know, the strength is. That helps us.
And his mercy, Krishna's mercy.
Oh yes, yes, yes. Both. So we need effort and mercy. That is what the Damodar Leela is all about. You know, we put in our effort, and then Krishna sees, oh, this person really wants to get to know me, and then he gives the mercy. You know. So he says, oh yes, this, because we have left him and come. So like if we, you know, if we fight with our beloved, for example, then we try to make up, right? To say, sorry, I really want to have a relationship with you. I'm so sorry I did this to you. You know, please, please. Like, you know, let's sit and talk about it. Let's do something about it. So we have to make that effort, right? Here also in the material world with our relationships, we see it. So with Krishna, we have the most important loving relationship, the eternal relationship. So we are, you know, have to make that effort to tell him, Krishna, I'm sorry, you know, I'm really interested to in this relationship. And then he keeps giving the mercy to us. So we can stop here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hari Hari Bol. Hari Bol.